Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Adel Hameed. So, welcome in the third lecture of the course, Introduction to English Literature. And today we will deal with a new topic, which is symbol. So, let us see what's the definition of symbol. Symbol is the use of concrete objects to represent an abstract idea. So symbol is the use of concrete object to represent an abstract idea. And let us see here we have many types of symbols. So here, according to the definition, that symbol is the use of concrete object to represent an abstract idea. So for example, here we have a concrete object, which is the picture of heart. But this picture of heart represents love and other things. And here we have concrete objects, but it represents the dollar, the American currency. And so also the other symbols, all of them, they are concrete objects, but they represent abstract ideas. So another examples of symbols. So look at the list here that, for example, we have some of the symbols mostly used in literature. So for example, here, the dove representing peace, and spring representing youth, birth, life, and water representing birth and rebirth, eagle represent freedom, liberty, strength, winter represent death, dying, and old age, skull represent death, and rose representing love, beauty, and crown representing wealth, royalty, wedding ring representing love, commitment, crossbones representing death and danger, sunrise representing new start, beginning, and full moon representing danger and weirdness, autumn representing middle age and maturity. And here we have also the second picture, that heart, symbol of love, like here, and dove is symbol of peace, and journey, voyage, can be symbol of life, and the apple can be symbol of meditation. And in literature, for example, such nice and beautiful child dressing with white, representing the hope and representing the a new life. So let us move to the second topic, which is very important in the literature, actually, which is imagery. Imagery. We can translate it into Arabic as الصورة المجازية or المجاز. So, what's the definition of imagery? Imagery is the author's use of language that appeals to the five senses in order to help the reader to imagine exactly what is being described. So it is an attempt from the author using language, okay, to describe a thing by appealing the five senses. You know, five senses. So let us see here this picture. So we have five senses, like see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. So the writer using language to describe, for example, such kind of scene. So by words and by sentences to describe. For example, the writer writes that there was a big picture, for example, and the sunset there. So you you are reading these words, but you are imagining in your mind a visual picture. And here, for example, when the writer says that I hear very nice guitar music also, and here touch. We have here, for example, when they say that I touched very hard rock, or a lady tasting sour thing, or a beautiful lady just smelling a flower. So these words, these sentences, describing picture. Here, visual picture, here, audio, and here. So according to the five senses, we have many types of imagery. العديد من أنواع الصور المجازية, as we will see in the next picture. We'll see here the types of imagery. So the first type is visual imagery, الصور المجازية البصرية, and here it is related to the scene. Here describes what we see. For example, the writer describing a picture, describing shape, describing pattern, size. For example, when the writer, for example, writes that I met a very tall, green-eyed person. So now just taking into your mind a picture of tall, green-eyed person in your mind. So you are reading these words, but you are painting in your mind a picture. Let us see the second type of imagery, which is the olfactory image. So it describes what we smell. الصورة المجازية الشمية أي المرتبطة بالشم. So when, for example, here the writer describes nice fragrances. When as soon as, for example, the writer says, as soon as I entered the supermarket, I smelled fragrance of coffee. Or as soon as I entered the corridor, I smelled bad things. So here the imagery, the olfactory imagery, related to what we can smell, The third type, which is gustatory, describes what we taste. So here we have gustatory imagery, which is الصورة المجازية التذوقية, related to what we are tasting. So when the writer describes something sour, sweet, acidic, bitter, salty. The fourth type of imagery, which is tactile, related to the touch or feel. So you see here, related to the touch or feel. الصورة المجازية اللمسية. So when, for example, the writer describes texture, movement, temperature, for example. So for example, the writer says, I touched the baby and he has a high fever. So this is the fourth one. The fifth and the final one, which is the auditory imagery. الصورة المجازية السمعية, related to what we hear. Here, for example, describes what we hear. So describing music, describing silence or noise. So next, we will see some examples, translated examples, in which we can find more explanation to the types of imagery. And so let us deal with the first example. So you see here. So the night was black as, so here the type, the example is about visual imagery, which is imagery using visuals. So the night was black as ever, but bright stars lit up the sky in beautiful and varied constellations. كان الليل أسودا كما كان دائما، لكن النجوم الساطعة أضاءت السماء في مجاميع جميلة ومتنوعة. So here, in this example, we experience the night sky because according to the description of the author, which is just describing in depth with color, black, bright, and shade. So here we can see that the writer, نستطيع أن نرى أن الكاتب خلق من خلال جمله وكلماته خلق صورة مجازية صورية، ونحن نقرأ الآن وكأنما نشاهد النجوم، لأنه خلق صورة مجازية صورية by his own words. This is the first example. The second example, auditory imagery. Auditory imagery type الصورة المجازية السمعية. You see here, silence was broken by the peal of piano keys as Shannon began practicing her concerto. كسر الصمت رنين صوت مفاتيح البيانو عندما بدأت شانون في عزف مقطوعاتها الموسيقية. And you can see here that auditory imagery breaks silence with the beautiful sounds of piano keys. Here also, the writer describing to us a scene of how the silence is broken by the peal of piano of a lady called Shannon, as if we are listening to her or hearing her music. The third, olfactory imagery, imagery using sense, related to sense. I very rarely drink coffee myself, but I adore its fragrance because it reminds me in Ashar market in Basrah. نادرا ما أشرب القهوة بنفسي لكنني أعشق رائحتها لأنها تذكرني بسوق العشار في البصرة. So here, just the writer describing a person, just a coffee, and this coffee reminds him of a place in which in Ashar market. So here we have also, we have what? We have الصورة المجازية الشمية المتعلقة بالشم، وكأنما الكاتب يجعلنا نشم رائحة القهوة من خلال الكلمات. The fourth type, gustatory imagery using taste، الصورة المجازية الذوقية. The candy melted in her mouth and swirls of bittersweet chocolate and slightly sweet but salty caramel blended together on her tongue. لقد ذابت الحلوى في فمها وخلطت على لسانها دوامات من الشوكولاتة الحلوة والمرة والكراميل الحلو والمالح قليلا. So here the writer is describing so what kind of taste for that lady. So as if we are just tasting the same taste of the candies. So here you can see that in this gustatory imagery, just using words related to the text. And now the final, tactile imagery using touch. So الصور المجازية اللمسية التي تتعلق باللمس. As she wiped the sweat from her brow, she realized her skin was just as cold and sticky. بينما كانت تمسح العرق من جبينها أدركت أن بشرتها كانت باردة ولزجة. So here in this example, imagery is used to describe the feeling of the skin because it is related to the touch. You see here, when just wiping the work, she felt. So here, just creating, the writer creating an image in our mind as readers by using the words to explain what kind of skin that lady has. So let us move to another topic, which is very important, which is the first type of literature, the first genre of literature, which is poetry. Poetry. So we have here a very big question. What is poetry? Poetry is an imaginative awareness of experience expressed through meaning, sound, and rhythmic language, and evokes an emotional response. Poetry mostly employs meter and rhyme, but this is not necessary. Poetry is an old form and has gone through numerous and drastic re-innovations over time. So this is the type, the definition of poetry, which is very important. You can see that poetry is imaginative awareness. So we can imagine pictures through the words of poetry, that we can experience such kind of feelings, and by expressing the meaning and sound and rhythmic language, and all of them doing what? Evokes an emotional response inside us as readers. So what are the criteria of poetic text? So what are the criteria of poetic text? How we can differentiate between two texts, that this is poetic text and this is not poetic text? This is poetic text. We can decide that this is poetic text if the text just has the criteria of the poetic text. The first one is relative brevity, so it's short. The second one, dense expression. The third one, express subjectivity more than other texts. The fourth one, display a musical quality. The five, be structurally and phonologically overstructured. And six, be syntactically and morphologically overstructured. Number seven, which is very important, that deviate from everyday language. So the language of poetry deviates from everyday language. And the aesthetic self-referentiality. All of these, they are the criteria of the poetic texts. So now we'll move to another topic, which is the types of poetry. The types of poetry. So when studying poetry, it is useful, first of all, to consider the theme, موضوعات, and the overall development of the theme and the poem, and the development of that theme in the poem. It is useful to keep two general distinctions in mind. We have two, according to the theme, طبقا إلى موضوعة القصائد، بإمكاننا أن نميز بين نوعين من القصائد. The first one، النوع الأول اللي هو the lyric poetry. The lyric poetry، الشعر الغنائي، and narrative poetry، الشعر السردي or القصص. So these the most important types of poetry, or the most important types of poems, and according to that distinction, we can see that we have subtypes, as we see here in this graph. So poetry here divided into two types: lyric poetry and narrative poetry. And lyric poetry subdivided into elegy, ode, sonnets, and occasional poetry. Narrative poetry subdivided into epic, mock epic, and ballad. So let us see the lyric poetry. A lyric poetry, a lyric poem is comparatively short. Here we have features, we have the characteristics of the lyric poem. Okay, these features of lyric poem are different from the features of narrative poem. So lyric poem is comparatively what? Short. And this is one. And non-narrative is two, poem in which we have a single speaker, this is three, present a state of mind or an emotional state. Lyric poetry retains some of the elements of the song, which is said to be its origin. And again, let us examine again the definition. So lyric poem is a comparatively short, non-narrative poem in which we have single speaker, one speaker inside, and this one speaker represents what? A state of mind or an emotional state. There are four types of lyric poetry. What are they? Let us see them one by one. The first type is elegy. Elegy. So what is elegy? Elegy is a formal lament for the death of a particular person. More broadly defined, the term elegy is also used for solemn meditations, often on questions of death. Example of the elegy poem, the example here, and the example is very important. So you have to memorize the example of each type because it is required when you will define this type elegy. So example of this is grace. So here we have the name of the poet, elegy written in a country church. Yeah, and this is the name of poem. So elegy وقصيدة المرثاة أو القصيدة الرثائية ومثالها قصيدة الشعر praise elegy written in a country churchyard. This is the first type. So let us see the second type. Ode. Ode. Ode is a long lyric poem with a serious subject written in an elevated style. You have often read odes in which poets praise people, natural scenes, and abstract ideas. Examples of this type of poem is the poem of the poet, the most important poet, Wordsworth, Hymn to Duty. This is the first example. Or the second example is the poem of Keats, Ode to a Grecian Ode. So here the ode, we can translate it in Arabic into القصيدة الغنائية أو قصيدة الغناء. So, and here we have two examples, and this for this kind of poem. Okay, so then let us see the third type, which is very, very important. The third type is the sonnets. Sonnets is a lyric poem of usually 14 lines, which became popular in England in the 16th century. One distinguishes between two main types of sonnets, the Italian sonnets and the English sonnets. The Italian sonnet is divided into an octave, 8 lines, and sestet, 6 lines. The English sonnet usually falls into 3 quatrains and 1 final couplet. Let us explain again the sonnet, since it is important. Sonnets, as we said, lyric poem of usually 14 lines. قصيدة تتكون من 14 بيت, which become popular in England in 16th century. One distinguishes between two main types of sonnets: the Italian sonnet, sonata l'Italia, and English sonnet, the English one. So what is the difference between Italian sonnet and the English sonnet? The Italian sonnet is divided into an octave, 8 line and sestet. الإيطالية متكونة من مقطعين، المقطع الأول 8 أبيات والمقطع الآخر 6 أبيات. The English sonnet usually falls into 3 quatrains. السونيتا الإنجليزية متكونة من 3 مقاطع رباعية، يعني 4 أبيات 4 أبيات 4 أبيات and one final couplet ومقطع أخير ثنائي يعني بيتين. So this is the main difference between the English sonnet and the Italian sonnet. So the fourth type, which is occasional poet. Occasional poet. قصيدة المناسبات أو شعر المناسبات. Occasional poetry is a poetry written for a specific occasion, for a specific a situation, a wedding, for example, or in the return of a king from exile or death. So these are the most important types of the poetry. And please try to read them all and try to memorize the types and the examples of each one of them. So thank you very much indeed for joining me, and thank you for listening. Please take care and stay home, please. Thank you very much indeed.